Now it is my pleasure to welcome our AGC Talk speaker today. Her name is Cindy Karnes, and she is presenting a talk called Lean In and Let Go. So how do you feel about that old cliche, when one door closes, another one opens? Are you someone who jumps at the chance of new opportunity, leaving that closed door behind? Or are you someone who holds on to that closed door, waiting for that door to reopen? Maybe you're fearful of releasing what isn't serving you. So discover how the stories we tell ourselves or told ourselves as children might be preventing us from releasing that closed door and moving through the open door with enthusiasm and delight. For over 20 years, Cindy was a successful business analyst in software development. She left that traditional career in August of 2020 to launch her own business, where she now helps ambitious women live an abundant life of time, money, and freedom. So I'd like to welcome Cindy to our stage.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here tonight. Thank you. I'm happy to be presenting in front of the AGC community tonight. Belief systems that were created by the time that we were 7, and the stories we told ourselves to support our belief systems and how they influenced us. The story I told myself as a young child is I am an only child with 6 siblings. Yes, you heard that right. An only child of 6 siblings. How is that even possible? Well, my parents divorced after me. They each remarried and had additional children. My siblings have the same set of parents. They have the same set of grandparents, and they traveled to family functions as a family unit. I, on the other hand, spent 50% of the time with my mom and 50% of the time with my dad. I was the only person in my family unit that was traveling life this way, that I was navigating through life this way. And that's when I labeled myself as an only child with 6 siblings. I adopted the mantra, I can handle this on my own. An example of this is when I moved to Minnesota for my first job out of college. My mom and my stepdad, they had my bags packed and waiting for me at the front door. They, on the other hand, were packing up their car with my siblings in tow, off for a family vacation. As I watched their car pull out of their driveway and head to their destination, I packed up my car on my own and I left in the opposite direction. I can handle this on my own. Now, you fast forward 20 years later, and I have a thriving career as a business analyst. I am managing teams around the world. I am surrounded by colleagues, friends, whom I call family, peers, mentors, and yet I still feel alone. Something was missing. It was time to determine what. Now, as a business analyst, I know how to solve problems. I create a timeline. I have a start date and an end date. And I mark off all my milestones in between. And I check them off as I progress. So off I went to invest in some podcasts, books, webinars, personal development journals, and yet nothing was working. I soon realized there was more than one way to solve a problem. And it wasn't until I hired a life coach that things started to change. Now, why did working with a life coach make a difference versus me trying to figure it out on my own? Well, my life coach, he was holding me accountable to the things that I said I wanted to create in life. Now, I relate to the personal development process is similar to getting acclimated to the temperature of the water of an unheated outdoor pool. We all know that feeling. We're standing on the edge of the pool and we know that the water is freezing cold. There's going to be some pain to get acclimated to that water. There's 2 ways to get acclimated to that water. One is to take a running dive, cannonball leap, get the shock of the cold water, and soon you're acclimated. The pain's over very quickly, and you're experiencing the beauty of swimming with your friends. The second way is the way that I do it. I stick a big toe in, and I do a temperature check. And yes, the water's freezing. I take a second try, put my big toe in, and yes, the water is freezing. I even try it a third time. The water's still freezing. I decide to walk down the steps, one step by step, inch by inch, and every step I take, I get the shock of that cold water, then I get acclimated, and I take another step. And soon I'm submerged all the way in, I'm all in, the pain is over, and I am enjoying the experience of the beauty of swimming with my friends. It was through my personal development process that I discovered since childhood, my story was about being alone. This hit home on a typical day. I was doing laundry. I live in a high rise of 32 floors. I have a shared laundry facility. There's 20 dryers and there's 20 washers. I'm at the folding table. I'm folding my laundry and I use dryer balls. I tossed my dryer ball into the basket and I missed. The gentleman on the other side of the dryers made a comment about basketball, to which I replied, I didn't make the team. He proceeds to share a story of when he coached his granddaughter's basketball team. He would go to the coaches' meeting and ask, who are the children that nobody wants? That's my team. You see, this team never won a game. As he's telling me this story, I'm folding my clothes and tears are streaming down my face. So much so that I don't want them to stain my clean clothes. I eventually look up at him with tear-filled eyes and say, oh my goodness, do you know the impact that you had on those children's lives? He looked at me shocked. He doesn't know me. He wasn't sure what to say. He just kind of shook his head and said, yeah. Oh no, I say, the impact that you had on those children's lives. You allowed them to feel as if they belonged to something. You allowed them to be part of a team. You allowed them to play a sport they may have loved, but wasn't so good at. He looked back at me and just said, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And off he went. I finished folding my clothes. I put my clothes in my laundry basket and off to the elevators I went. And by this time, I'm sobbing. I am in an ugly cry. You know, the ugly cry. And I'm asking myself, why is this story impacting me so? And that's when I realized that story touched that young little girl that I had stuffed deep down inside me. That little girl that told herself she's an only child with 6 siblings. That little girl that told herself that she's alone. By now you may be saying to yourself, these are fantastic stories, Cindy. You may have some sympathy or maybe even some empathetic. But what does this have to do with open doors and closed doors? Well, it was around this time that I was collaborating with a friend of mine. We were super excited. We were creating a new program. We'd tried it before, but it didn't work. We had reformatted the program. We had the start date, the time, we had the location secured. We each had our own topic. The only thing that we had left to do was to promote the program. 2 weeks prior to the launch date, I get a call and she says, hey, Cindy, I'm sorry to do this, but I must bail. I went silent It felt like for 5 minutes. It was probably just 5 seconds. And to which I replied, "I'm sorry, what?" She went on to say it had nothing to do with me, of course, and everything to do with her. She was overwhelmed and stressed, and she just didn't feel like she had time for the program. Just before we hung up, she uttered the words, "Cindy, I know that you can do this on your own." That was like a sucker punch to the gut. It was that mantra, "I can handle this on my own." Logically, I understood everything she was saying. She was overwhelmed and stressed. We have 168 hours in the week, and we get to choose, where do we want to spend our time and energy? And she was launching her own project. So of course she should be spending her time and energy on her own project. But emotionally, I felt she abandoned me. She didn't abandon me at all. She was simply speaking her truth. 2 days later, I get another phone call from another friend of mine, and she says, "Hey, Cindy, I have a fantastic opportunity for you." See, she has a professional speaking gig, and she was looking for professional speakers. She needed 2 slots filled, a workshop and an inspirational talk. I had no idea what I was doing, but I said, "I'm all in." This project felt more in alignment of me and what I wanted to create in the world. I wouldn't have had time to do both projects. That inspirational speech, it was actually a contest, a speech contest, and I took first place. And the stories that I told myself as a young child, I'm an only child of 6 siblings, that's just a story. The facts are, my parents divorced. They each remarried. They each had additional children. I was loved by both sets of parents. I was loved by all my grandparents. I had fantastic grandparents I wouldn't give up for anything. I was surrounded by countless aunts and uncles. I have a gazillion cousins. I have amazing siblings. I had an amazing childhood. I celebrated 2 Easters and 2 Christmases. As a child, who doesn't want to do that? Amazing siblings, amazing childhood. It's what got me to where I am today. My new label, I'm the oldest of 7. My hope here tonight is that my story has inspired you to take a look at the lens that you use to navigate life. And if there's something in that viewfinder that's preventing you from being the best version that you can, being the best person that you can be, something that's preventing you from taking center stage and for all the world to see, then ask yourself, is it serving you? And if the answer to that question is no, then I encourage you to release it at the closed door and be ready to say yes to new opportunities. Be ready to step through the next open door.